Organ donation is a MMI favourite. They love throwing this into your ethics stations and going on about it because there's so much to talk about. So rather than just talk to you about organ donation, because I mean you can do that on any website, I want to do a mock station like I've done in the past video. So this is a new style of video that I've been trying out. Hopefully you guys like it. But what I'm going to do today is go through 3 questions from an organ donation MMI stand. And I want you to pause the video after every question, give yourself a few minutes, come up with the answer in your head and deliver the answer like you were in an MMI. Play the video and then I'll talk through the answer and give you a mock answer as well that you can read up on. So if that sounds like a good idea to you, let's get straight into the video. So let's get started. So you walk into the station and I'm sitting there as the examiner and I give you the first question. Imagine you are a medical professional discussing organ donation with the family of a deceased patient. The patient is a registered organ donor, but the family is hesitant and emotional. How would you approach this conversation considering the family's concerns and patient's wishes? So now is the time to pause the video, come up with an answer in your head and deliver it as if you were in MMI. Hopefully you've done that. Let's talk about this question. So this is a very basic opener style question. This isn't really targeting a particular scenario. I mean, it is, but it's not really relevant. Like you could apply this to any situation, this question would still stand. So there's no right or wrong answer here. Organ donation is highly controversial and the decisions are really on a case-by-case basis. All you need to do is firstly understand that the patient's an organ donor. What does that mean? So you need to tell the examiner you know what an organ donor is, as someone who has registered or the current new system has essentially just passed away without opting out of the current system. It essentially means they are willing to donate their organs for life-saving purposes or any other reason necessary. Now, the patient's family opposing, it doesn't mean that you can't take the patient's organs or they won't be able to donate them. It just means that a debate has to be had with the doctors, with the medical team, with the family. It also doesn't mean that you can just take the organs. The family's opinion still has a say in this, and there is scope for the patient not to have their organs donated just because the family don't want them to. So it's important that you have an open conversation with the family and the other doctors looking after him and have a wide discussion about whether the patient's organs should be donated. You should make it clear to the family what this means and how this would affect other patients' lives, most importantly. But then you should also take their feelings into account. So there may be religious reasons or other reasons that they feel uncomfortable with having the organs donated. So there's no right or wrong answer here. You don't have to say, therefore I would donate the organs, therefore I wouldn't. You just need to say that you'd have an open and wide discussion with both family and the doctors looking after the patient. So here's a mock answer on the screen. I'm not going to read through it, but you can pause the video, you can screenshot it, and you can save the answer for later. Perfect. Let's go on to question 2. So you are part of a medical team responsible for allocating a single heart available for heart transplantation. There are 3 potential recipients, each with different medical conditions and chances of survival. Patient A is essentially a 40-year-old man with severe heart failure due to a congenital heart defect. Their conditions deteriorated rapidly and without a transplant they're probably unlikely to survive beyond a few months. He's also got a history of drinking and drug abuse. Patient B, a 60-year-old man with end-stage heart failure resulting from a lifetime of poor lifestyle choices such as smoking and unhealthy eating habits. The patient's prognosis is uncertain due to complications from their lifestyle-related condition. Patient C is a 25-year-old athlete who suffered sudden cardiac arrest while training. The patient's in stable condition but requires a heart transplant to continue living a healthy life. The chances of survival without a transplant are actually relatively high, as well as their chances with a transplant. So essentially the patient can continue living very healthily for a few years. And the question is, which patient do you give the heart to? So this is a very textbook organ donation question. They give you 4, 5, however many patients, and they ask you to pick the best one or to rank them in order of who you give the heart to. Now, again, the key for this question, no right or wrong answer. You can say whatever order, as long as you justify it, that is absolutely fine. There is no right answer to this because in real life this would go to an organ donation committee, doctors' opinions would be involved, families would be involved. You know, there's no black and white answer to this. So what you need to do is go through patients A, B, and C, talk about the pros and cons for each patient, and at the end, just come up with your own one, whichever one you think would do better with that. So you know with patient A, for example, you would talk through maybe the pros that they are a 40-year-old man, they may have a family, wife, children, they have a congenital heart defect. That means they need the transplant urgently, you might say. So this probably means he should get the heart, but his history of drug abuse and drinking and smoking, etc., are deterrents, and you would speak to the patient about whether he'd be willing to go to, things like rehabilitation, therapy, completely cut off these bad habits so that when they give him the heart, they can trust that he will be living a full life. There are set rules, like patients who have a history of drinking aren't allowed to drink alcohol until they get their transplant, to see if they would be willing to do this long term. So you might want to bring those things into it, but that's just a list for A. Patient B, who's a 60-year-old man, you might say that initially he doesn't look too good for getting the heart because of his age. His condition is a lifestyle-related condition, so even if he got the new heart, who's not to say that he's just going to keep drinking and eating poorly and not exercising and damage the new heart. But then again, you could say that, you know what, it's a lifestyle condition, so with a bit of counseling, coaching, physiotherapy, lifestyle changes, he could well easily live another 20, 30 years maybe. Patient C, for most people I think would be the obvious answer, except for the fact that he can still live healthily without the transplant. So he's got no other contributing factors. He is perfectly healthy, he's a fit young man, he's an athlete, but the fact that he can live a few years without a transplant might mean that you put him slightly down further the list. Now, when he needs a transplant, he will get it, but it's not as urgent as patient A, for example. Like I said, I'm not going to give you a right answer because there is no right answer to this, but you just need to select one of those patients and justify it, whilst also acknowledging the other patient's pros and cons. Right, let's do question 3. How would you address concerns about potential exploitation or inequality in organ donation, particularly related to socio-economic status? So a much more vague, open question this. So this question is getting at how you would ensure organ donation remains a fair and transparent process. So the first bit was about exploitation. Now you also want to bring in things about exploiting organ donation, things like the black market. You want to ensure that whenever an organ is being donated, there's no coercion involved, the fact that there is no sort of monetary gains involved, and the person donating the organ is a willing participant. So there are a lot of cases of black market organs being donated, black market organs being bought, and it's really, really important that you're able to see through this and you put a stop to this immediately. By no means can that go ahead in hospitals, so that is something that you might want to talk about. You then want to move on to talking about how inequality is quite a rife problem in organ donation, but patients should be allocated organs based on the medical needs of that individual, not on the money or how rich someone is or how successful they are or how big a career they have. It needs to be based on who needs the organ most and who is most likely to look after that particular organ. So there's an element of responsibility from yourself that you need to show the examiner you're aware of, and that you will dismiss monetary things that could cloud the judgment of the donation committee. So as a mock answer, here's one on the screen. Now this isn't perfect, but it's something that I might say, and it's something that I've come up with. Essentially, it is up to you though at the end of the day what you say. You can remove parts from this, add parts to this, but this is just something that you might want to rip. And it's a very rough mock answer. It's not perfect by any means, but that's something that I think would be pretty good to say in an interview. Alright, so those are 3 questions on organ donation. We've gone through them each, talked about them, and also given you mock answer for questions 1 and 3. Hopefully that was helpful and you kind of find these videos useful. If you are, let me know down below so I get some sort of feedback. But if you've got any other questions, topics you want me to do, let me know, contact me on Instagram. Aside from that, I will see you all in the next video. See you in a bit, and subscribe.